And we welcome you to another edition of This Is Wrestling. It's Versage, alongside the one and only Z Gibbon. Hornswoggle, Zach McGibbon, how are you?
Doing pretty good, Mr. Versage. Glad to be back for another episode of This Is Wrestling this week, and I hope people are enjoyed our extravaganza of an episode covering AEW Revolution this past week.
It was... it's still going on. It's right beside Edge and Randy Orton.
That's right.
For the thing
this is actually a continuation from that episode that we're doing. We're now getting special guests involved, and I still laugh at the end. It's like, no, Elimination Chamber wasn't over 2 hours. I'm like, Lee, literally we discussed on that same episode. It's like, wow, we really went long on this episode. It's like,
I still didn't think it was that long, but you know, we still went longer on this one. We figured it out. And look who's joining us. I don't know whether to call him, you know, the head of OSN, the guy who runs things on Ottawa Sports Now, the guy who, you know, brings us up to date on C4, Sin Cara Enjoyer, Tanner Reil. Tanner, nice to have you.
Yeah, nice to have you too. I thought you guys were still recording that episode right now. I think it might still be going on. Zach still might be dropping my name about 8 times throughout an episode. You know, I get it, Zach, you're jealous that I met Terry Funk, but
I mean, out of all of us, Tanner Reil was the one that met Terry Funk.
What do you mean out of all of us? What's that supposed to mean, huh?
That's exactly what it damn well means, Tanner. I'm making no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Okay. The Sin Cara Enjoyer is the one that met Tanner Reil. Met Terry Funk.
Terry Funk met me.
That's probably what Terry Funk was thinking.
Yeah. Oh, he loves his Sin Cara, that Tanner Reil.
I was 15 at the time. He was probably thinking, has this guy even seen any of my matches?
It's a great picture, though. Like, it is. When you sent it to me, I'm like, holy cow, that's a really good picture. How dare you talk about Tanner like that, Zach, on the last episode? I can't believe you would do that.
And then I put him over and said, look, we need to have him on for the next episode. It was a little bit of a roller coaster for Tanner this past episode.
Yeah, really.
It went from a burial to, you know what, we really need Tanner on the next episode.
Yeah. Well, you know that it got to him and sparked a little emotion because it was the first thing out of his mouth on the pregame show yesterday on OSN for the Ottawa Senators.
Yes.
Like, if
just
that's what...
sitting and stewing, he's like, oh,
that's what I mean. If that's what he's talking about, you've done a good job, Zach.
Yeah, well, it was what I listened to on my drive home from the office right before Lee and I hopped on. So it was very fresh on the mind last night. But that was fun.
Zach, you're becoming the Ethan Fink of another show. So that's good.
Oh, we don't need more of that.
I don't know. Let's find somebody else. I thought you were going to go with a classic wrestling heel for that one, not that man. Not
that man's a heel on everything on OSN. So.
You don't want to hear his wrestling takes, though. I'll leave it at that.
I've heard enough. I've heard enough.
I've heard enough, says Zach McGibbon. Well, we got a lot to discuss, including the fallout from AEW Revolution and, you know, a little bit about Hangman Page's future in the company and what they did on Wednesday on Dynamite to further that. But Tanner's also on the program because he is our C4 insider guy, and we haven't talked about the C4 show in Ottawa last Friday night. Of course, it's a Friday night, so it was a snowstorm, which every Friday night is, including another one coming up tomorrow as we record this on Thursday. But Tanner, first of all, what was it like? Because it was Blade in the dark. Of course, the Blade returning to C4 after a lengthy absence, mostly due to severe back injuries and surgery, but a big snowstorm. How was the attendance and how was the atmosphere?
Yeah, it was a sold out show, actually. And admittedly, I kind of waited until the last minute to grab my tickets. I was about to buy them online the morning of, only to realize they were sold out online that morning. So I had to make the drive over to the Odds and Sods shop in Nepean, and I got my ticket there, luckily. But yeah, it was a sold out show, good crowd. I know going into the venue, like the storm hadn't hit yet. It was actually fairly pleasant out, but yeah, it was quite the sketchy drive home coming back. I mean, no traction whatsoever on the highways. Nothing had been plowed, but yeah, it was a good night. And I mean, we've got not even only this show, we've got quite a bit of C4 catch up to do, I think, on this program, because we were all in attendance, the This Is Wrestling crew, at their previous show at the Preston. I don't believe we got around to doing a show on that. And they had another show at the Algonquin Commons Theater, an all-women show where they crowned their first women's champion, which I wasn't able to make attendance for that. It was on a Thursday night, kind of hard to get to that. But we got a lot of catch-up here, including, I think, every C4 championship has changed hands since the last time that we've talked about this company. And the new champion.
Yeah, so that's I think where we're going to get to here, like on all of the shows. I think we need to recap instead of going through kind of match by match on last Friday. And because we hadn't got to the show before, whether it's the Algonquin one or the one we all attended down in Preston, except for you, Zach.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was not able to make that booking, unfortunately.
No, Zach makes all of the Acclaim and Remix shows, just doesn't like us at C4. So, okay, that's cool.
Well, here's the thing, okay? Acclaim and Remix, Tanner wasn't able to show up for the Thursday booking because, he's a busy individual as well. He's out there working, and I get it. I understand it. In this case, Acclaim and Remix, they're both Saturday shows. It's like, hey, I'm not working. I can come on down. I can make that booking. Okay. Tough to get down on a Friday night. So,
well, soon you'll have every Friday night available when Newmarket dusts the Trenton Golden Hawks. So that'll be good. So
at least the next 2 Fridays are Golden Hawks games. So gonna enjoy them while they last, apparently, according to one Lever Sage.
Let's get to. I think, Tanner, you set it up perfectly. Every championship has changed hands. So let's talk about the major one first, and that is we have a new C4 champion. And Sheldon Jean has upended Junior Benito for the top prize in C4. Tell us about kind of being there, the match, and whether you really believed going into that match that Sheldon Jean had a chance to upend Junior Benito.
I don't think going into the match, I was confident that he was going to win the title. I thought it was probably going to be a retain for Benito. I kind of figured they would be building up eventually to do McCray Martin, Junior Benito, and maybe that would be where he'd drop the title. I think we're still going to get that match sooner or later, but I think Sheldon Jean makes a ton of sense as the C4 champion. He's one of the best wrestlers in the company. He's been booked a ton there since departing TNA, and they've built him up really well over the last year and a half or so. I think I remember talking about a year ago, a phenomenal series of matches he had with Stu Grayson. I think they went a couple. They did a time limit draw and then a big street fight where he got the better of that feud. The last show, he had a big win over McCray Martin. He's wrestled Fancy Ryan Clancy. Just a lot of momentum building, kind of slowly bringing Sheldon Jean up. And I was even saying about a year ago, I wouldn't mind him being a guy to take on Benito. And we got that match on Friday, and it was a good match, a really good one. But I think more so than Sheldon's dominance, I really noticed the crowd in this one starting to turn a little bit on Junior Benito. And I don't know whether that was by design or maybe something carrying over from Acclaim or from Zach. I've heard that Benito's had a bit of a change of heart.
Yes. And in some cases tastes as well. Yeah, he's been unveiling this newer character. I had heard about this heel Junior Benito actually when he was just breaking into the industry, and he had worked heel a couple of matches for like smaller shows when he was just starting off. And I had been told at that time, they're keeping Benito babyface now, but just you wait, because there's a heel character that's waiting to be unlocked. And once Junior kind of expands out his moves and his in-ring ability, and he gets more comfortable as a character, that heel character, once it gets unveiled, I was told to watch out for it. So I had kept it in the back of my mind. It's like, he's a solid babyface. He's got good babyface energy. And so seeing him, at least in Acclaim, seeing that heel energy coming through, you're like, at first I was like, I don't know if it's going to be able to work as well, because while there are new freedoms that come with being a heel, I just don't know if it would just work for Junior. But right now, like, he's been really embracing the role and really like leaning into the character at Acclaim. So it's interesting that you're starting to, at least from the crowd reactions, getting some hints of it at C4.
before we get back to the match between Sheldon Jean and Junior Benito, I want to ask both of you. I understand in different independent promotions that guys can, go back and forth and be a babyface and be a heel. But what about in the same cities? I think it's interesting that Junior Benito is a heel at Acclaim. I believe he's a babyface in the Remix, Zach.
Yes.
And he's a babyface and now maybe a bit of a tweener in C4. How do you guys feel about characters being different, like Junior Benito, in the same city when you're wrestling independent, Zach?
Well, say from having chatted with promoters and how I usually commentate matches, the focus that I usually get told to have on them is to make the promotion just be one. Don't reference anything that's going on in other promotions, because you'd be surprised, because obviously there's fans like us that go to all the shows in Ottawa, and like we go to the Remixes, the Acclaims, the C4s and whatnot. And if you want to get out of Gatineau, you go to Mystery Wrestling as well. But there's a lot of shows, like I can tell you that Remix's audience is very different from an Acclaim audience. I don't see a lot of carryover from a Remix audience compared to an Acclaim audience. There's a lot of different people. You obviously have your regulars. And so the idea being that, well, yes, there's people like us that like intensely follow it. There is this idea of like, we are our own promotion. We want to focus on our own things. And this is what we want to do, how we feel as the promotion. That we want to move forward. And it goes back to like the style of the promotion. Remix is more of a party promotion, especially being in a brewery. So you're getting more of the high flying matches, while Acclaim is a little bit more, they certainly have great matches there, but you also have more story based stuff that they like to do. And storylines that they like to have monthly. And at Remix, it's more of a quarterly show as opposed to monthly. So I guess that's, to try and answer your question, I don't mind it as much, because I like seeing different visions of guys, and that makes the promotion unique to themselves when you go visit it, as opposed to like, if I'm just going to see this guy be the same as the other one, I'm just going to stick with this promotion because either it's closer or they run more shows, that sort of deal. So I kind of like that from that aspect.
Yeah, okay. So I think that's a good answer. I don't necessarily agree with the philosophies then of the promotions, because I would disagree that if I go and see Junior Benito and I see him perform in C4 and I see the baby face and I see like he's just the natural baby face that everyone kind of rallies behind. If I go to a show and see him and then I look around and go, oh, he's at Remix, he's at Acclaim, oh, I'm going to go see him. And then it's a totally different character. I'm confused as a fan. And I know you say you don't get there's not a ton of carryover, but I don't think wrestling fans are stupid, regardless of what other people think of wrestling fans. I don't think wrestling fans are stupid. So, Tanner, for me, this is a little bit like, I'm not the owner of Remix. I'm not the owner of Acclaim. So it's up to them what they want to do. But I just think that there's got to be, even if people aren't going to the events, they're checking in on them. If you're a wrestling fan in the Ottawa area, you're a wrestling fan. There's got to be some carryover. And I would find it a little bit confusing just as a fan to see something totally different in one, as opposed to down the street at the other the next night.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I get it from also the promotion's point of view, and that they've got their storylines lined out, and say C4's got this babyface story for Benito, but then Acclaim wants to turn him heel and they do so. C4 can't just blow up their entire story that they've got planned. So I can see that being tough. I'm not sure if there is a better way to handle it. I also think it's good for the talent on the independents to get to work as both a heel and a face at the same time, and get to develop the skills of each side of that character. But yeah, I totally get where you're coming from.
So tell us about the match, how it ended, and how Sheldon Jean became the new C4 champion.
Yeah, it was a pretty good back and forth match overall. I think these two had some decent chemistry. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing them wrestle once again in C4. Bit of an odd ending where Benito did his big dive to the outside where he goes over the corner post and does that
It's incredible.
That dive. It's amazing.
It's wild.
Yeah.
And there were some fans, and the fans throughout most of the night, there was a lot of "Let's go Benito, Benito sucks" kind of dueling chants.
Right.
But there was a fan that really seemed to get under Benito's skin. I don't know if maybe this is a buddy of Sheldon Jeans or a plant or whatnot. I would imagine so, but started really getting at Junior Benito, and the refs and security kind of had to step in and make sure this fan and Benito didn't get after each other. And McCray Martin ended up coming down as well and getting in between them and trying to get Benito's eye back on the prize. But Benito gave him a bit of a shove. He's a good buddy there, and got back into the ring and set up a door that was already in there in the chair and got Sheldon Jean set there. Looked to hit his big 450 splash, but taking advantage of all the distractions and the recovery time, Jean rolled out of the way. So Benito ended up going through the door. Fantastic sell, by the way, afterwards. Benito's great at that. He looked like he had been tased.
Right.
And then Gene hit his finish there and got the 3 count.
Okay. How was the reaction from the crowd afterwards?
Kind of mixed, but I would lean more towards positive, and I think some shock as well. I think there were some people in there that did not expect Sheldon Jean to be winning the C4 championship. But Gene then went over and celebrated with that group of fans that were kind of around where the one heckler was, and they seemed pretty excited for him and were throwing up the ones and stuff. So
right
there you have it.
Well, there were those of us who were in attendance at the previous show at C4 that were throwing up the V's for Von Vertigo.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Viscera. I thought Viscera showed up.
No,
that'd be a time.
Yeah. Oh, Vader showed up?
No. I love Von Vertigo, and I know, and Tanner, I know that you like him as well.
Yeah.
Von Vertigo, the new C4 Underground champion, and did a really good job winning that belt and then defending it on the last show. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so Friday he fought Matthew St. Jacques, who had a bit of a different look, coming out in a Canadian tuxedo, the all denim look.
There you go.
Different from the usual plaid that you see MSJ come out in. And yeah, man, I'm such a big Von Vertigo guy. I know Lee likes to jump around and have his flavor of the month, but yeah, Vertigo is my guy. And he was fantastic once again. I love these things. He comes out and he has Vertigo's rules where there's no weapons, there's no interference, there's no cursing, any of this stuff that the opponent's not allowed to do, but that doesn't apply before the bell rings. So he got the jump on MSJ before the bell, and that ended up happening. The actual match got underway. It wasn't a terribly long one, but I've seen these two wrestle numerous times over the years, whether it's singles or in tags with Fight or Flight back in the day. I thought it was a great match, and Von Vertigo did pick up the win to retain the title. But that's my guy, the V guy.
The V trigger, Zach. I have to admit, like I've gravitated towards Von Vertigo for a couple of years now, and I can see why Tanner likes him. I can see why C4 likes him. He's got that kind of it factor, doesn't he, Von Vertigo?
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of calling one of his matches when he was down at Acclaim before Junior Benito's heel turn. He had a great match with Junior Benito as well. Yeah. He's somebody that I saw. I believe he just got his U.S. visa renewed as well, so he's going to work more American shows on top of that. And so he's somebody that's well traveled. He's been to Europe. He's been to the United States, and he's just really been honing in his wrestling skill. And I hope he gets more of a showcase in the United States, because we've talked about it on the show before when it comes to Canadian wrestlers trying to get the big showcase. A lot of the times, like, speaking with Mark in the past, he's always been somebody that tries to, bring some American imports into his promotion to try and get a showcase like, oh, this top American wrestler against one of the top Canadian wrestlers, and get more people talking about it and help growing some of these Canadian wrestlers and that in turn helps C4, because people are like, oh, look at some of these great Canadian wrestlers that are over there. It's kind of that same strategy, but in reverse for Von Vertigo, now being able to get outside of Canada and working some of these different promotions and working these different opponents overseas. So I believe he's also going to be working a lot of WrestleMania weekend too, which is another big showcase weekend for a lot of these independent wrestlers. So he's somebody that continues to whenever I see him booked, I'm always happy to see him booked. And I learned recently he's actually from Port Hope, Ontario, just down the road here from Belleville. So, how about that?
I've told this story before, but I'll just tell it quickly again.
Yeah.
Port Hope, Zach, you very familiar with going by the sign.
Yes.
That also, I know they've changed it, I think recently, you've told me. That also says welcome. And as a kid, I was just, even as a young adult, I embarrassed myself, but would go by and go, this is just the most polite town, Port Hope. Like the fact that they would kind of welcome you, nobody else welcomes you on the sign to Port Hope. And then I found out as an adult that Welcome was actually a town. And on the sign, there was 2 towns, one named Welcome and one named Port Hope. I'm like, man, Port Hope sucks now. I thought they were good. I thought they were nice. I thought they were polite.
Are we sure Von Vertigo wasn't from Welcome, Ontario? I mean,
right.
He could be. He seems like a very polite, welcoming person.
You know what, Zach? You're the fact checker of the group. You need to fact check that.
Jeez.
It's like when people say they're from Ottawa, but they're from Stittsville, they're from Carleton Place, they're from anywhere. They're from Orleans. Come on. Well, no one's from Well, you guys are, but Barhaven's just. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the show at Algonquin Theater, the all-women's show, and it crowned a new C4 women's champion. And Tanner, when I say new, they didn't have a women's C4 champion before this show. They just didn't have that belt in the repertoire, did they? So interesting that they finally have decided to go with a women's champion. Alexia Nicole wins it. Let's maybe talk about why they didn't have one beforehand and the decision now in 2026 to finally put one on.
Yeah, I think I've been calling for it for a little while. I remember when they did the all women's show last year, I was saying, like, don't be surprised. Maybe this is the right time, but they decided to pull the trigger this year. And I think it's a great decision. I think it just makes more opportunities for the women of C4 to get the titles because they've been able to compete for the men's championships. And, everybody's kind of got their own opinions on intergender wrestling, but I think in the time that I've been watching C4, the only one I can really recall getting a title is Alexia Nicole winning the underground title. I want to say a year and a half ago, give or take, but they've had a few women's champions over the years, but I think this is a great opportunity, especially with the amount of talent that's starting to come out of places like IWS. There's a lot of great young women's wrestlers that deserve to have their own title and should have a title in C4. And I don't think there's a better first champion than Alexia Nicole. She's been probably their most consistent women for the past 5 years since I've started going to that promotion. And then there's a lot of other great ones in there, like Kristara, I think would be a great champion down the line. I know she's doing some great things over in Acclaim fighting for their championships. So why not? And, you've got some other ones like Leah Sparks that are coming up, Drea Mitchell.
Yeah.
I think there's not a better time to, especially when you're doing an all women's show, to crown a women's champion. And I don't think there's a better choice for a first one than Alexia Nicole.
Yeah, this is essentially when AEW was starting up and they wanted to establish the world championship. They put it on Chris Jericho. This is kind of in a different way with C4 establishing a new belt. You want to get a big name on that belt that you've been pushing, and that would be Alexia Nicole in that case. A consistent face throughout her time at C4. And like you mentioned, there's a lot of really good women's wrestlers that are coming up. Another women's wrestler I'm going to throw out there that I think you'll see a lot more, and I think her stock is going to skyrocket a lot, is Layla Wilde. She is going to be a star. I'm pretty confident on that. Right there with Drea Mitchell. I've called a couple of her matches at Acclaim, and she's got a powerlifting background, but she's also athletic and seen her do moonsaults and all that stuff. So she's somebody to keep an eye on, and she's from the Ottawa area. So one of the things that C4 likes to do is also have some local talent that they could continue to rely on. And I think when you have that women's championship that's established, she's somebody to keep an eye on in terms of her growth. Still very new into the industry. She only started a few months ago, but you could tell that there's a lot of talent there. Drea Mitchell, as you mentioned previously, also somebody, she recently went to there was that Lodestone camp that Bailey had put on, and it was inviting a bunch of women's wrestlers from around the world. to that camp, and it was a bunch of WWE wrestlers that were there. John Cena also took part in training as well, and she was one of the women that was invited to Lodestone along with Leah Sparks. So obviously a lot of eyes are on Drea Mitchell in terms of her ascent as well.
Yeah, and I mean, good to mention Drea right now because she won a battle royal or a gauntlet match on the C4 show on Friday, which means that she's got a future championship opportunity of her choosing. So I think you're already going to see her probably stepping up to Alexia Nicole.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Tanner, when then you say that she was kind of the perfect choice. I mean, underground champion. She main evented against Evil Uno, a C4
in a
show.
Phenomenal match. I really enjoyed that one.
For the world title, like there just isn't, I think, somebody that can do that on the roster, and she's proven, over and over and over again. So hopefully she, takes that title to new heights. This is where I kind of, Mark might be mad at me for this, but like, if you had the title around last year or 2 years ago, I feel like Mercedes Moné could have been wearing that title.
Well, like, I mean, it's hard to predict on that, like who would have thought that she would go to every independent possible, including shout out Winnipeg Pro Wrestling, but who knew that she was going to be wrestling for Winnipeg Pro Wrestling and winning their women's championship at this stage, so
you don't know until you try. I think people would be surprised that they didn't have a women's title with all the, like, when you have a woman main eventing for the world title and you're underground champion, and they do a lot of mixed intergender wrestling at C4 that they didn't have one, I think would be a surprise to a lot of people. So, better late than never, and we'll see where they can take it.
I wanted to throw this question out there before we move on. There's been a lot of talk about intergender wrestling, of course, with the promotion. Would there be a need for a women's championship? I mean, they've already introduced it at this point, but would the idea being they've already kind of had it intergender? Is it just makes sense to just keep the titles as is because the women are taking part in the main titles anyway? Or I shouldn't say main titles, but the already established titles anyway. Would there really be a need for a women's championship when they're already kind of facing off against some of the other wrestlers on the roster? Because I've always found that interesting.
I think so, because I think it's wonderful. Like, some of the intergender wrestling to me is about having people always be equal and look like everyone's got an equal opportunity. And I think that's a great front to present when you're an independent wrestling company. I really believe that. But I also think having the women's title and showcasing for everybody that goes that there is a prize at the end of, because there's a prize for, like, we can talk about that they've competed, but there hasn't been a women's world champion, right? There haven't been, the women haven't been two women that haven't been tag team champions. So it's like, yeah, they can compete, but are they really going to be there? Are they really going to be the champion for a year? Like, after they win it? I think that there has to be something to showcase how great some of the women are. And I think you can do both. I really, truly believe that. I think that you can do both. Tanner, let's move on to the tag team division, where Project 8100 were the tag team champions, but no longer.
Yeah, I was a little surprised about this one. To me, it didn't feel like Project 8100 had it for that long, but now looking back on it, they actually held the titles for 259 days. I think there was the summer break in there and maybe not a show over Christmas. So maybe a little less defenses than we've seen in other shorter reigns, but I thought they were going to hold the title for a pretty long time. And the new champions, the Rogues, Casey Ferreira and Elliot Tyler. And they'd been building this up on social media a little bit, them coming into it, not having the best record in C4, bit of an upset for them getting the titles. But yeah, this is one that really surprised me. I'm not going to lie. I figured 8100 were probably going to hold this all the way until maybe like a Northern Thunder ready to take it. So great for them. But yeah, not an expected one, them winning it in a four-way match there.
What do we know about the Rogues?
I unfortunately don't know too much. I've think I might have heard the name Elliot Tyler before, but I don't know the tag team itself. So unfortunately, I don't have much to kind of provide when it comes to that tag team. So that it makes it in some ways kind of a more shocking title change, right? When you kind of put it on a tag team that's a little bit more of an unknown. That could be, if Mark has seen more matches from Rogues and saying, you know what, I could trust these guys to put the belts on them and get and let them showcase themselves with the belts. That's an interesting opportunity, but I don't know too much about them, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think just looking back, it looks like this is only their 4th match in C4, and like I said, completely winless, including in January when they lost a tag team matchup against Project 8100, which was just a straight up tag team match.
Right.
You have to appreciate the fact that you have a show in March. It's a snowstorm. Yes, it's all about the Blade coming back. But then there's not one, but 2 major title changes. And it feels like you don't know when those are coming. And that's kind of the beauty of going and being a fan, is that you don't know when they're coming. And good for them. Let's talk about the Blade and Evil Uno, because Tanner, it was the return of the Blade after being away for a very long time from the world of professional wrestling. AEW with the Butcher and coming back to C4, major back issues. And how did he look?
He looks pretty good. And yeah, we haven't seen the Blade in C4 in a long time. This is my first time ever seeing him. The Butcher has been here a couple of times fairly recently, but not the Blade. But I think when you bring a lot of these lower AEW guys in, it's pretty noticeable that they are TV wrestlers and have a little bit more experience than some of the other C4 guys. And of course, you're putting him in there against Evil Uno, who's also very established, both here and as a bigger talent. And Uno is completely back to his babyface character now of just being kind of Evil Uno. I'm not sure how you would describe him, but he's no longer the out for blood monster heel that was the C4 champion. So I thought it was a pretty fun match. A bit of a disappointing ending, though, which we can get to a little bit. The 2 of them ended up taking out Surge at one point. They even fought up to the balcony. Evil Uno tried to throw the Blade off of it, but that was thwarted, much to the chagrin of a lot of the crowd. Kyle Joseph was also taken out at one point. A door was brought in, and it ended up in a pull-apart brawl where these 2 kept taking out refs and fighting each other. Serge Saint Denis ended up going through a door at the hands of the Blade, and they basically just brawled up the entrance ramp and out. So a no contest. Now, the Blade is booked for the next C4 show, so I wonder if maybe we are going to get a rematch with some sort of stipulation.
Okay, what other highlights from the show before we move on?
I really enjoyed Gabriel Fuerza and Fancy Ryan Clancy. I thought they had a very good match. I think that might have been my favorite on the show, to be honest. I think Ryan Clancy's just really stepping up in a big way, and he's a guy that I think I wouldn't mind seeing challenge Sheldon Jean, to be honest, maybe down the line in his world title run. But he was on the losing side to Gabriel Fuerza, a bit more of an established guy who also could see potentially challenging for the C4 championship.
Yeah, I like Fancy Ryan Clancy. I from what I've been able to catch, I think he was an IWTV World Champion at 1.2. So I think he's somebody that the indies as well are kind of seeing, and he's really been growing more into that character. And I quite like him. He's somebody I've been kind of keeping an eye on to see where his growth has been going on the indies.
Yeah. And then the other big one, I guess, would be the semi-main event, which is a 6-man tag team matchup. McCray Martin and Northern Thunder with London Lightning and Storm Rider defeating the Busta and the Brain, the team of Alec Price and Jordan Oliver, who are signed to AEW. We haven't seen much of them quite yet, but very young, promising talents there. Yeah. And Marcus Mathers, who interestingly is part of the WWE ID program. So it's kind of interesting they got those 2 teaming up, or those 3. But I know both of them, or all 3 of those gentlemen, are involved sort of in the GCW realm, higher up on the indies. So yeah, just kind of interesting. I wouldn't expect that crossover to be happening, but
yeah. Well, the WWE ID system, it's a very interesting thing that Gabe Sapolsky has been pushing, and it's funny in some ways with the ID system. You see their Twitter and they just keep on saying, hey, promoters, like, book our guys. It's okay. We're not going to like work with us a little bit. Work with us. Because I think a lot of the independent promoters don't want to get screwed over by WWE because they tend to do so when it comes to how bookings are going. I know it's a little shocking. But there's also certain elements, I will say, of when AEW puts out their wrestlers that you have to like work around some booking stuff. But yeah, it's so I think there's been a lot of hesitancy from promoters to kind of book a lot of those guys. But Marcus Mathers is somebody that, like, WWE ID contract or not, he's somebody you got to have on your show somehow, some way. I mean, he's just so talented. And so it is kind of cool that they have them all together into this 6-man and put it all together into this match. But that ID program has been fascinating to see how it's been treated, not just in C4, but also just across the indies.
For sure. And I don't think it's changed anything for Mathers because he was heavily getting booked by C4 before he ended up with the ID program. And I think he's a top level independent guy that could be a champion in pretty much any promotion. I know he had the IWTV title for a little while as well. But Jordan Oliver and especially Alec Price are two talents that I really enjoy as well. I'm a big Alec Price guy. I think he's going to go pretty far. And looking forward to seeing what AEW decides to do with him. I get that, they're still fairly young and not established for that division. And the division's pretty deep with the 3 teams you've got coming out of Revolution on top there. But I think Price and Oliver could be some pretty big players in AEW in a couple of years.
And I'll say this about Jordan Oliver too. That guy's got a great mindset in terms of just, because when he started, I remember he was not a good wrestler, and he would tell you that too. He was not somebody that, like, he was very green, but he took that criticism. Like, I remember him just getting all this tweets because he kind of got pushed ahead of where he was actually at, but he never faltered. He never like went to Twitter and said, you guys all suck, and put on these vague Instagram stories, right? That you kind of see nowadays. He's somebody that took in the criticism and said, I've got to be better. And I will listen to, what the valid criticisms and work to make myself better. And he has really improved over the last couple of years to now be in a spot to get that AEW contract. So I got to give a shout out to him, because I remember seeing, like, there was a spot many years ago. This was during the pandemic, where it was him, and I'm trying to remember the other wrestler he was in with, but they were trying to do essentially the Ricochet Osprey back and forth spot, and it just looked sloppy. It looked really bad, and you could tell it was way out of their depth when it comes to the in-ring. Right. And he didn't go out there and say, oh, you guys suck and you don't understand pro wrestling or whatnot. He saw all those tweets criticizing it, and I remember he liked all of the tweets. When you could see likes, he liked all of the tweets, didn't comment on them, and then continued to be like, okay, well, I know this is not good here, so I'm going to try and work on this, and I'm going to try and work on this, I'm going to try and work on this.
Good for him.
And so, he's got a great mindset, and I it's paid off in an AEW contract, so I gotta give him props on that.
So the next show, before we move to AEW, the next show is on WrestleMania weekend on April the 17th. That's interesting.
I said that when we were there. Yeah. And I mean, you can notice there's a couple of talents that you would usually see on those C4 posters that you don't. Junior Benito, Von Vertigo probably being the 2 biggest ones to me that stand out. But, I wonder if this has to do with building availability. More than likely, they booked this before WrestleMania ended up getting moved, because I believe it was on the earlier weekend when it was supposed to be in New Orleans. But still some pretty solid talent, I think, on that poster. I mean, you got the Blade, you got Evil Uno, you got Violence is Forever. And I think the big one for me would be Dijak coming back. And a couple guys there that I'm honestly surprised wouldn't be in town for WrestleMania weekend, maybe going up on the Saturday or something. But C4 is pretty lucky to have them on that card that weekend.
I was going to say, as some of the names, like, I thought that they would be down for WrestleMania week. I mean, it's funny we call it WrestleMania weekend, but it's really a week of just like professional wrestling shows down in Vegas. But, I wonder if it also has something to do with them going back to Vegas this year, and how the indie promotions kind of follow. And you see the attendances right now for WrestleMania, while still like a lot. If I was just starting to get into wrestling promoting and I got 40,000 people in the building, I'm not exactly crying about not getting more. But when you're WWE and you're WrestleMania, and last year you get 60,000 each night. Now, as it's targeting, I think the last check it was like 40 to 45,000. They'll probably get more. They'll probably cross that 50,000 mark. But I wonder if demand is not as high either, to just kind of go back to the same place and see all these promotions again when they already kind of had that experience from the year before.
Do you think, and trying to get into the mind of Mark who runs C4, I mean, trying to make a show special when you know that it is WrestleMania weekend and a lot of guys that you have are not there, what do you do as a promoter? I wonder, what he might be able to pull together to put out for this show to try and make it stand out on a weekend where he's not in Vegas. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to AEW for a bit because, Tanner was here. Zach, you watched the show. I think we all agreed that AEW Revolution was one of the best shows that we have seen in a very long time, regardless of where we're going to actually rank it. It was an awesome night of professional wrestling from beginning to end. The last match, Hangman Page and MJF. The stipulation that says that Hangman Page is not allowed challenge, or he won't challenge. It's not a written contract. It's a verbal contract that they made sure to tell everybody that it's kind of on a handshake deal on Hangman to not do it. And where do we think this all goes? And now a little bit of hindsight, Zach, to Dynamite, to see the MJF promo afterwards, kind of basking in the glory and bringing up Hangman Page a number of times in that promo about how he's not going to be able to do it. Do you think the AEW sticks to it, or where do you think that they possibly can go at this point?
Well, right now, it sounds like he is taking some time off the Hangman for the next little bit. I think that's a good thing to kind of have him sell off that injury. Could you imagine if he showed up on Dynamite this past weekend and just waving to the crowds like, hey guys, that was quite a match I had this past Sunday, wasn't it? Oh boy. Very, very, and it's like the one singular bandage on there. It's like, oh, come on, you got to give me a little bit more there, Hangman. But I think how they put this together, I said on the last show that one of the reasons why so many people were kind of into the match is because they stuck to that stipulation with Cody. And you can argue about how it affected Cody, positive or negatively. I think at the end, the stipulation held firm because they stuck to that stipulation. Mm-hmm. And so I think now in this case, one of the things that's made AEW stand out is the fact that they stand by their stipulations and they do stuff where it's like you watch a WWE show and it's like, oh, it's a retirement match. But when Lee and I were reviewing the show about AJ Styles' retirement match, we were like, oh, well, is he going to back out of the retirement in a month or so? Are they going to get it back to a WrestleMania program? How legitimate is this retirement? Because we didn't really believe in that stipulation from WWE. Now it looks like they've held firm on that stipulation, but it's that idea of, in the case of Hangman Page, I think they should be sticking on to this stipulation for, I said, at least 2 or 3 years. And then I think people would be satisfied if they back out of the stipulation at that point. I think in that amount of time, in a 2 or 3 year stretch, I think you could do some stuff with the Hangman, whether it be, there are 1,000 championship belts in AEW that he could compete for and do something similar. I know I'm making the comparison with the Cody run, but something similar to the TNT championship, where Cody was able to establish that belt. You have Hangman with maybe the Continental Championship or maybe even the TNT Championship, something like that. And then finding a way to kind of get back into the fold. So that's how I'm kind of viewing it. And I think MJF, in his case, he's being a heel. He's trying to twist the knife on the fans. Like, I ruined your hero. Your hero can't get back in. He's going to stay firmly in the mid card where he belongs, like just kind of turning the knife on the fans a little bit.
But Tanner, don't you think, well, I shouldn't tell you what you think. I thought in that promo that him doing that was telling me that Hangman's not going away. And at some point, this stip will be broken somehow, some way. But how do you see it?
I think I'm with Zach, actually. I think MJF was doing it for heat, and it seems like they already might be setting up a program with Darby. So I think they're going to move MJF along, and he's twisting the knife as he should, as MJF kind of always does.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is a bigger thing than he's ever really done in the company. He's never had that big of an accolade. He's won the title twice, but I think stripping Hangman of the challenging for it for the rest of his career potentially is probably a bigger deal than winning the championship. So I think it does make sense. And yeah, it's something where I think you got to go at least, I'd say even more than 2 or 3 years. I'm thinking like 3 to 5,
right?
Somewhere in that range. But I think there's enough there where Hangman's only really won the world title and he had the tag title run with Omega. And if you really want to count the trios run with Zach's buddy's job speed there.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's enough to do, you know?
Wow.
Well, hey, it catches on. Zach's buddy's job speed. I like that name.
You know, there's the international title, there's the continental title, there's a lot of guys he hasn't worked with. And I also think that Hangman Page is best when he is down bad and depressed. To me, it's like, I know it's fresh in my mind because the trailer just came out, but like Spider-Man Peter Parker, he works best when he's down bad and depressed and sad and it's not going his way. So I think you do that for a couple of years, you have him maybe win another title, you have him take some L's, and then you maybe look at whether it's a heel turn and he turns his way on his word, turns back on it and challenges for the title again, or maybe some sort of diabolical feud with MJF down the line, right, or Swerve Strickland, where if Hangman wins, then the stip is reversed, but it's got to really call for that. And you can't just do that like next month or something. It's got to,
for sure. Work. I think we all agree that if they did something, it would be further down the line. It would not be soon. But the question is, can they do something eventually? So I'll ask you first, Tanner. Can Hangman not enter the Owen? Because if he wins, you get a guaranteed title shot, and that's a tournament. Is he not allowed in that tournament because of this stip?
I would assume so. Or, I mean, they didn't have that stip in the first year of the Owen. Am I wrong?
No, first year of the Owen, there wasn't, but
yeah, they added it now a stip. So
yeah. So maybe they're gonna be like, hey, Hangman, tough luck, pal. If you win the Owen, you're challenging for the Continental or for the TNT or for the international title. Take your pick, buddy.
This idea isn't my favorite, but it just popped in my head and I'm interested to hear your thoughts. What if he's representing somebody in the tournament, like wins it for somebody to get their title shot? I know. No. I thought about that. I was thinking of Andre and Hogan at the main events where Andre takes the belts and like gives it to DiBiase. And I'm like, I thought about that idea. It's like, I don't love it, but like, is there some way you could coordinate it with Swerve where it's like, Hangman, like if you win this for me, whatever, I'm getting the title shot or whatever.
So I think where I get confused a little bit, like I understand. I think they went out of their way after in the press conference to make sure that it was a verbal agreement and it's just Hangman on his word. It is not a written contract, right? They went out of their way, Tony Khan did, to say that it's what he wanted and it was a handshake deal, it's a verbal agreement, and it's his word on whether he's going to do it or not. I don't want to confuse the conversation, but I was really confused on Dynamite how Swerve Strickland became the number one contender for the world title by beating Brody King in a match that he didn't know was for the number one contendership beforehand, but finding out afterwards that he was the number one contender and that Kenny Omega had challenged him for the number one contendership on next week's Dynamite. And now Swerve wants to be an EVP. Yeah. And it's like they're just throwing all this stuff around and nobody seems to care. And I'm bringing this up, Tanner, because nobody seems to care. Oh, you want to be an EVP? Yeah, we'll wrestle next week on Dynamite. It'll be great. But Hangman could never challenge for the title again in 2 years. We got to hang on to that stip. But they're throwing out all this stuff like, yeah, Swerve's the number one contender. Nobody knew that. Kenny's challenging him for the number one contendership. I didn't know you could do that, especially because Swerve didn't even know he had it. And then as Swerve found out he had it, he's like, well, I want to be a vice president. Sure, we're going to wrestle next week on Dynamite. Like everyone, you just have this crazy, all of these steps are added and no one seems to care. But when Hangman said he wouldn't, we got to hold that for 3 to 5 years. It seems confusing to me.
Well, I feel as well. Just, I mean, the fact where we're going right back to the EVP stuff, I thought we moved on from this from the Bucks, and I thought we were in a new path, and now we're going back to the EVP stuff. And now Swerve, I guess, wants to be an executive. He wants to like wear a suit and come in and look over a wrestling promotion now.
Yeah,
sure.
Well,
fine.
let me look. I'm trying to get to a point here, and I'm just trying to make it clear. I think Swerve Strickland is going to get the executive vice president, and I think Hangman's going to turn heel, and Swerve and Hangman are going to be a dominant team, and Swerve is going to get that reversed for Hangman. How do you feel about that?
I enjoy WWE Monday Night Raw as much as the next person, but I'm not really feeling that angle. I mean, I love the Attitude Era too. I loved when Steve Austin was an executive that one episode of Raw, and he's giving all of the office workers beers and whatnot. So I really enjoy my little sports entertainment. But in this case, I'm saying this knowing that that's probably where they're going. And I'm not really happy that we're going down this path. I thought after Revolution, we had like you, Tanner, you, Lee, bunch of people texted me, pro wrestling is back. In all caps, I was texted that. I was going to text you all that too.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're so back. And then I'm watching Dynamite this past Wednesday. And I'm sorry to our AEW super fan. Yeah. But, I wasn't really the biggest fan of Dynamite this past Wednesday.
It was actually, I don't know. That's not how you follow up a great pay-per-view. I thought they had a very subpar show.
I tuned back in. The first thing I saw, I had to go back and watch the Ospreay match, which is great. I will say that Will Ospreay looks fantastic. I'm like, oh my God, the best wrestler in the world's back, and like, let's go. Mm-hmm. But the first thing I tuned into is Jack Perry coming out of that bus with the dinosaur guy, like driving the vehicle. Yeah, like, and I'm like, what are we doing here? Did my programming get wrong? Like, what are we doing?
Okay, Tanner, do you? If that happened and Swerve gets the EVP and he teams with Hangman and they're the most violent crew in the world in the next year, and Swerve has the ability to get that changed, fair or unfair?
I don't care. It's bad television. I'm with Zach. I don't want to see that. Oh man, are Swerve and Hangman gonna go broke when they have their fall from grace? And are we gonna have to see a bunch of $200,000, $100,000, $500,000 tag team matches? Does that fit into this somewhere?
Oh,
I mean, I'm on board with the two of them teaming up and going on a tag title run. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
That would be cool. Yeah, that would be cool. But not the scenario that's being laid out where it's like, we got a broke cowboy now. Like, why do people in this company go broke? That's not a good thing.
No. Nobody said he was going to go broke. Okay, you guys are saying he's going to go broke.
You're right. No. I am working myself into
I got another part of that though. Like, sure. Swerve and Hangman are on the same side now, or could be.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where they're going. But are they going to stay like that forever? Because those two have some good matches against each other.
Yep.
And there's some bad blood there. Like, do you think Swerve wants to let Hangman get the world title, or does Swerve want the world title for himself?
I think in the end, Hangman is always going to be a babyface. Even if he's dastardly and down and out and plays the heel really well, I think people want him ultimately to succeed. And I think Swerve can be the antithesis to that. So, yeah, I don't think Swerve wants Hangman to have the title, but I think he can probably do some things for him in that EVP situation. I guess
maybe if it's a case where if Hangman beats Swerve, then Swerve has to reinstate that or something.
Yeah.
That I'd buy into a little more than just, hey, Swerve, we're best buddies. Why don't you reverse that for me? We don't have any bad blood. I didn't stick a syringe into your mouth or anything.
I mean, the fact we're talking about like appealing to an authority figure in the AEW,
but
like, what are we doing here?
Zach, is Hangman an EVP now?
No.
Do you see a scenario where Hangman gets the EVP from Swerve?
Oh God.
And is able to reverse the stip.
What is this?
Do we need an EVP championship or something? Like, what is
what is this? Is Hangman gonna come in? It's like, I'd like an ice cold beer, please. Like Stone Cold Steve Austin to the assistant. Like, is that what we're doing here?
Okay, let's get the conversation back on track as we wrap.
I'm sorry,
here.
it's just this idea is just
getting it back on track means. Do we think that Hangman Page is completely out of the world title picture for the rest of his career?
No.
Okay, so it's just when. We're not talking if, we're talking when.
Correct. That's how I look at it.
Okay,
I would agree.
And I mean, my big question about the Owen, and when you have things come up, is he just not allowed to be in those things? Like, is he, they do it at Double or Nothing sometimes, right? They do the Casino Battle Royal. Is he not allowed in those matches? Because if he wins, he's not allowed to challenge for the title. Maybe they should. Here you go, Zach. I'm going to leave you with this.
Oh boy.
He's going to go in the Owen and he's going to win. And they're going to like say, hey, man, you can't do this. So you got to give it up. And he gives it up. And then they have the Casino Battle Royal. He goes in, he wins. And they're like, no, Hangman, you can't. You said you wouldn't challenge.
Yeah.
And then he keeps going down this road of like winning all of these things. And finally, they're like, okay, well, I guess.
They just do the shoulders up.
Hey, he's proved himself. He's proved himself on this long fight back.
Wow, that's just all of that for, well, I guess. I mean,
anyway, so I agree with you guys. I think it's when, not if.
Yeah. I hope it has nothing to do with him having to appeal to an authority. Could you imagine the Hangman trying to appeal to an authority figure of any kind?
Okay, so how do you think it's going to happen then, if it happens? Like, to me, MJF, the one thing that I think he's done a great job with is his fuse is short.
Mm-hmm.
And if at some point you can get back into him and he agrees to things, he's done it in his history, right? He's agreed to things on the spot that he's instantly regretted, but he's agreed because he's too fiery. Do you think that plays into it?
For a heel character, I think that would be a great thing. I think that would be very interesting to play it up later on as a heel thing, getting too fired up, and like I do on the podcast, and just like give up the stipulation and go back on his word as sort of
right.
heel heat. I think that would be great as something like that. But again, I'm looking at that like, if they did it 2-3 years down the line, you can get off of that stipulation, still get the heat, and still get people satisfied. It's like, oh, he was adhering to the stipulation for long enough where that stipulation still means something when it gets applied to a future match.
So if it happens in 2 years, do you think people still believe in the stip?
Like everything that I just laid out there, like he just turns his back, and I think so.
You think that if they ran something like that again, people would still believe in it?
I think so.
Okay.
And maybe they do some sort of quirk where, because if anything, wrestling needs is more paperwork angles where Tony Khan has to like put in writings like, look, we tried to trust the Hangman on his word and he backed out of it. So I got to put this in paper. And Smart Mark Sterling's like overseeing the contract, right? Like that's where we could be heading. I don't know. But
all right. Okay, well, that's going to do it for us. Tanner, thank you very much for being a big part of this show. We appreciate it very much.
Yep, always a pleasure, boys.
Never a chore with you, Zach.
I rate a certain je ne sais quoi each and every time on the episode.
One of my favorite sayings from a great reporter, one of the best to me in the country, and I would call him a friend, Arash Madani, says, Versage, always a pleasure, never a chore. And the sarcasm dripping out of his voice every single time.
That's right.
That he says it. So for Tanner Reil and Zach McGibbon, I'm Lee Versage. Thanks again for listening to another edition of this, is wrestling.